we cannot overlook the current Middle East terror and atrocities today as we think about our college campuses in America. No doubt for you, raw emotions and a visceral response has been stirred in recent days. As we think about religious freedom on our college campuses, let me ask you this. How is anti-Semitism itself on campuses across America manifesting itself in response to the horrific acts of terror perpetrated by Hamas upon Israel?
Thank you, David, for that question. And it is a very important question. I would say it's actually very not complicated. We're actually involved in an existential battle between good and evil.
That's right.
It's very clear right now which side you're on.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is even less ambiguous than 9/11.
Yeah.
And while this conference was in the planning stages, I intended to speak mostly about the K through 12 space and the demonization of Hasidic schools in New York, which are robustly more successful by objective standards, but state education officials colluded with the New York Times to falsely paint them in the worst possible light. But that planning went out the window when last week, Saturday, happened, the worst pogrom since the Nazi Holocaust. Almost 50 years to the day after Arab armies gathered for genocide on the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur in 1973, they did it again, but this wasn't a war. This was a massacre. This was a pogrom. The barbarism of Hamas, as Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin pointed out, even put ISIS to shame. Parachuting onto a music festival and gunning people down, raping and murdering women, kidnapping Holocaust survivors, and decapitating babies. Think about the worst thing that a human being can do to another human being. I assure you Hamas did worse.
Yes.
I will send a video today, which has not been distributed yet, and which I cannot share. I will not tell you what the contents are because somebody will run out of the room to vomit. It's literally that bad. And yet, people say, oh, but it's not the Nazis. You're right. It's not the Nazis. The Nazis tried to hide their barbarism. Hamas live streamed it. And Americans cheered.
Yeah.
Harvard student group said they blamed Israel for the atrocities. Black Lives Matter said they stand with Palestine during the massacre. And the Students for Justice in Palestine organization, with over 200 campus chapters, called raping women and beheading babies a historic win for Palestinian resistance. They then called for an SJP Day of Resistance on college campus, which resulted in universities telling Jewish students they can stay home, and other campuses put in the Hillel House on police lockdown while the Nazis walked by. If you think this has to do with the political matter, land dispute, or the Middle East, you're out of your mind. Nazi references are hugely overused, but I used it advisedly. Make no mistake, this is 3,300 years of bigotry and hate against Jews and Judaism.
That's right.
At its root, it is about our religion. And they are the new Nazis, and they are here in America, and that is why Biden officials in a call just yesterday with Jewish leaders reassured us about their commitment to the Jewish community here, not just in Israel. Because it's not just plain citizens. Numerous members of the squad has called for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid with no mention of the hostages that Hamas is holding. 200 war crimes a second. These animals could release the hostages and services would immediately be restored, but the squad doesn't care.
Right.
They care a lot about kids in cages at the southern border, but not at all about kids held by beasts in Gaza, because those kids are Jews. Second example. Just yesterday, a terrorist rocket misfired, as over 30% of them do. It landed next to a hospital in Gaza, at least according to Hamas, murdering over 500 people. It was fired by Palestinian Islamic Jihad Hamas is on tape taking credit for it, regretting the fire. But the United Nations and world agencies lined up to blame Israel before any facts were known, and so did members of the squad, especially racist Rashida Tlaib. This time they told the blood libel after the pogrom. So now we know that a Nazi can be a member in good standing of the House Democratic Caucus. And that should terrify everyone. Look around the world and find the countries where Christians are experiencing the worst persecution. You know what you won't find in those countries? Jews.
Yeah.
They go after the Sunday people right after they finish with the Saturday. The fact of the matter is, we've known SJP's true colors for years. Their chapters, since day one, have honored only terrorists, murderers, and anti-Semitic propagandists at the Nazi level. And you can't have Christian groups on campus. You can't say microaggressions against preferred minorities, but they're absolutely A-okay with actual Nazis marching the campus. And you know what? Until 2007, students used to protest for human rights. Rwanda, Darfur, Bosnia. But since then, the expert's sitting right there. International religious freedom has tanked since 2007 around the world, declining year over year over year. Right?
Wow.
Nothing on campus. Zero. You know why? Because they're all protesting about Palestine, Palestine, and Palestine, which last time I opened the Bible was nothing more than a European colonialist moniker for somebody else's Holy Land.
Emperor Hadrian named it that.
Student energy has been co-opted by anti-Jewish hate. If the Biden administration or Congress is serious about taking on anti-Semitism, there are two very simple things to do. Number one, you expel the racists. It's easy. 2/3 vote. Certain Democrats won't want to do it because they won't want to expel those representatives, but they have to go. Number two, deny federal funding to any university that grants student funding or access to university spaces to students for justice in Palestine. It's an anti-Semitic hate group. It's not allowed on campus. It's explicit in Title VI, which both the Trump and Biden administrations agree applies the protection of Jewish students. It's all about a false narrative against our religion. And of course, it's the basis of Christianity. It's the basis of Islam. These people have no morals. They have no values.
That's right.
They're all about hate. And if you care about religious freedom and human dignity, you want to be sure that universities are not funding hate.